Hello and welcome to Unacademy IAS English, a one-stop destination for the English medium civil services aspirants. A very good morning and welcome to the daily Hindu news analysis. So before we begin today's discussion, I have a very important announcement and I want all of you to pay attention. As you all know, right before Prelims 2024, we announced the launch of Quality Enrichment Program, under which we have launched Conquer Mains 2024. The primary purpose of this initiative is to help those students who are preparing for the upcoming mains to improve their answer writing skills, along with coverage of all the important current affairs of the last 1.5 years. So when we launched this program, initially the program was priced at 9,999. Many students wrote to us asking why the price was so high. But let me explain why the program was priced at 9,999. The intention was to ensure that we got serious students into this program who are genuinely preparing for the upcoming mains, who are focused on improving their answer writing skills. But later, after the prelims results came out, Unacademy's management decided to drop the fees to just 999 rupees in order to benefit those students who had cleared Prelims 2024. But however, we realized that this would be unfair for those students who had already subscribed to the program by paying 9,999. We also received a number of comments and suggestions, and we have been receptive to that. We brought up the issue with Unacademy management and the leadership team has agreed to resolve this issue immediately. So let me explain how this works and what you have to do. If you have cleared Prelims 2024, then you will be eligible for a refund of 9,000 rupees, thus ensuring that Conquer Mains is available to you at just 999 rupees. If you haven't cleared prelims, even then we have a solution. In that case, you can upgrade to our Plus subscription and access 15 months of all classes, including our test series, doubt clearance sessions and mentorship, by just paying the difference amount of 14,999. All you have to do is to fill the Google form which has been provided in the video description. Just click on the video description below. You will see the second point where a Google form link has been shared. So those students who have cleared prelims, you just have to provide your roll number. And we will ensure that if you have paid 9,999 for Conquer Mains, we are going to refund 9,000 rupees. So that you will be getting this course at just 999 and thus you can benefit from this initiative. You can cover your current affairs and improve your answer writing skills. For others who haven't cleared prelims, you can still upgrade to our Plus classes by just paying the difference amount, and all you have to do is to fill the Google form provided in the video description. So I hope this answers the concern of many students, and we have to thank the management at Unacademy as well for being receptive to these concerns. So with this, let's get started with the analysis of today's The Hindu newspaper by looking at the topics that we are going to discuss. Today, I have chosen 7 important articles. There are 3 articles which are relevant for mains and 4 small articles that are important for the prelims exam. So let's analyze all these topics one by one and ensure that you don't have to go back and read the newspaper again. If you guys are liking our initiatives, do extend your support through your likes, your comments. That's what keeps us motivated. Now let's look at article number 1 on page 12 related to internal security. This column is examining the recent trends in militancy that has been witnessed in the Jammu region. If you guys remember, a few days ago, we did have a similar discussion following a recent terror attack in the Kathua sector. We had discussed the rising trend of militancy and increasing terrorist attacks in the Jammu region, especially in the Poonch, Rajouri and the Kathua sectors. In fact, in the last 1 month, there have been 5 major terrorist incidents in the Jammu region. So these are not isolated incidents. There is a clear pattern, a clear trend which is emerging, and the security establishment in India has already started worrying about the new pattern, the new trend which has been observed. So it's very important to understand this from an internal security point of view. Because traditionally, if you look at militancy in J&K, the Kashmir region has been more prone to terrorist attacks. There are few homegrown separatist outfits operating in J&K with support from across the border. There are few Pakistan-sponsored and Pakistan-based terrorist organizations which infiltrate into India and carry out attacks. And most of these attacks are usually concentrated in the Kashmir region. Jammu also was historically affected. If you look at the history of militancy in J&K, in early 90s and early 2000, Jammu was also badly affected. But the threat in the Jammu sector had been contained thanks to our security forces and intelligence agencies. And over the last 2 decades, Jammu region had been relatively peaceful as compared to the Kashmir region. But in the last 1.5 to 2 years, we are observing a very disturbing trend, an alarming trend, where we have noticed a spike in terror attacks in the Jammu region, and none of them are isolated incidents. There is a well-planned attempt. It's a well-orchestrated, concerted attempt by the terrorist outfits with the backing of Pakistani state agencies to create trouble in the Jammu region, which could escalate into a major security crisis for India. So let's examine this topic in slight detail so that we are able to understand the threat perception which is being felt by our security forces and security agencies. So first, let's look at the new pattern. What is this new pattern which has emerged? If you look at the Chenab Valley region, and also if you look at the south of Pir Panjal range, which essentially divides the Kashmir and Jammu region, there has been a significant increase in the number of terrorist attacks. According to our intelligence agencies and also according to the Indian Army, which is deployed here in a counter-terrorist, counter-insurgency role, they are very sure that there are 2 separate modules, terrorist modules, which have infiltrated from across the border from Pakistan. And these 2 modules are acting separately. There is apparently one terrorist module comprised of hardened terrorists carrying out attacks in the Poonch Rajouri division over the last few months. Apparently, there is one more terrorist module operating in the Kathua sector, carrying out attacks in that particular region. So, according to reports which have emerged, in places like Doda, Kishtwar, Kathua, Udhampur, Riyasi districts, which are present around the Chenab Valley, there has been a spike, a major spike in terrorist incidents, and also ground level intelligence reports are indicating the movement of well-armed terrorists. Then to the south of Pir Panjal, in the Poonch Rajouri divisions, we have witnessed a similar trend, and as a result of these attacks, a number of soldiers of the Indian Army, number of civilians have lost their lives. Even the number of terrorists who have been killed has gone up significantly, thus indicating that this is indeed a new trend, a new pattern. It's not just a one-off incident. It's not just a coincidence. Now, if you compare the data from Jammu region and Kashmir region, of course, even now Kashmir region witnesses more number of terror attacks. If you look at the loss of lives of soldiers and civilians, the terrorists killed, it is definitely higher in the Kashmir region. But if you look at Jammu region historically and compare the data now, we are witnessing a spike. As I told you, after 2003, the Jammu region had become silent. It had almost become free from terrorism. So to witness a sudden increase in the number of attacks and in the number of losses that we are suffering, it clearly indicates that a new pattern, a new trend has emerged. So Jammu region was very active as far as militancy was concerned in the 1990s to early 2000. See, this is where you need to look at the brief timeline of militancy, the history of militancy in J&K. So when did militancy begin in Jammu and Kashmir? It was starting from 1987, based on rumors that the elections in J&K were rigged. Following this, local separatist forces with support from across the border in Pakistan triggered the first wave of militancy that spread across Jammu and Kashmir. So obviously the Kashmir region was the most affected right from 1987 till date. The Kashmir region is the most affected. But starting from 1990s, especially by mid 1990s, in the Jammu region as well, which is to the south of Kashmir, we saw a significant increase in militancy, and this continued until 2003. For almost 10 to 13 years, Jammu region was also significantly affected. It had become a hotbed of militancy. There was a lot of local support that the terrorists were enjoying in Jammu. Plus the terrain, the complex terrain of the Jammu region, especially around Pir Panjal ranges, was to the advantage of the terrorists who were infiltrating from across the line of control. But thanks to a targeted operation carried out by the Indian Army with the backing of other security forces and intelligence agencies, we managed to put down these terror modules operating in the Jammu region, and since then the Jammu region had become relatively safer and peaceful. So terrorism largely became confined to the Kashmir division, whereas Jammu sector largely became free from such incidents of militancy. So what we are witnessing since 2021, over the last 2 to 3 years, is a clear spike in planned attempts at creating trouble in Jammu region of Jammu and Kashmir. So let me explain this further with the help of a map. Let's look at the map of the region so that the understanding is more clear. Now, if you look at the map, you can see the entire state of Jammu and Kashmir, the erstwhile state of J&K as it existed in 1947. The map shows the claims of India. It shows the entire J&K, the erstwhile state of J&K as it existed in 1947, belonging to India. You can also see the occupied areas. You can see Pakistan occupied Kashmir, POK, which includes Gilgit-Baltistan and the parts of J&K over here, right, which is under the illegal occupation of Pakistan since 1947. So ever since militancy began, it was in the Kashmir region over here to the north of Pir Panjal. See, this over here is the Pir Panjal range. This over here would be the Pir Panjal range of the Himalayas. So most of the terror attacks that we had historically seen, they were concentrated over here in the Kashmir Valley. From Srinagar to Gulmarg, Anantnag, these were the hotbeds of terrorism, and they remain a hotbed of extremism. So from across LOC, there has been clear direct support. So to the south of Pir Panjal, can you see these areas, Poonch and Rajouri? So they were the hotbeds of terrorism as well in 1990s to early 2000. But due to the security measures undertaken, the militancy had been contained in the Jammu division. Even towards Udhampur, Kathua, which are slightly away from the line of control, even here, such incidents had been contained, brought down significantly in the last 20 years. So it's in this region over here, from Kathua to Poonch to Rajouri, to the south of Pir Panjal, this is exactly where we have witnessed the spike in acts of terrorism. Now, let's quickly understand the reasons that could be responsible for this changing trend. See, one reason obviously is Pakistan, which has always been looking to create more trouble for India. Pakistan has historically exploited the separatist tendencies in J&K, and it has used this to wage a covert war against India. This has been part of Pakistan's strategy to bleed India through 1,000 cuts. It has backed the separatist movement, it has directly enabled terrorism against India, and even sheltered multiple anti-India terrorist outfits. From Lashkar-e-Toiba to Jaish-e-Mohammed to Hizbul Mujahideen, Harkatul Mujahideen, multiple terror outfits have been bred by Pakistan by giving complete support in the form of terror financing to supply of weapons and the provision of training and safe havens through which these terror groups have conveniently operated across the border. And also several local militant groups and separatist groups, including Al-Badr, JKLF, and many others have been backed by Pakistani state agencies like the ISI, which is Pakistan's intelligence agency, and its army. So there has been that constant state support, and obviously Pakistan would always be looking to destabilize India by exploiting the situation in J&K. That is the prime reason. So Pakistan, which has found it difficult of late to mount attacks against India for several reasons, has been looking for new opportunities, and it has exploited a new opportunity, a new opening, which has come up in the Jammu region. So specifically on the ground, there are few reasons which are responsible for what we are witnessing. You need to understand how come Pakistan has been able to create this opening and exploit this opportunity. So let's understand that. So one major development was the border clashes that we had with China in 2020 in Ladakh. 4 years ago, I'm sure all of you know that India-China got into a tense border standoff in the eastern Ladakh region, and particularly at Galwan River Valley. There were direct clashes between Indian Army and the PLA, where many soldiers were martyred from the Indian side and several Chinese soldiers were also killed in this clash. So following this serious escalation, India carried out a major redeployment of troops in the region. So from Jammu, in the Jammu sector, where the threat of terrorism had gone down over the last 20 years, India carried out a major redeployment of the Indian Army towards Ladakh. Because we could not compromise the security in Kashmir. Kashmir had been very vulnerable ever since 2019, ever since the provisions of Article 370 were abrogated. Kashmir had been very sensitive and vulnerable, and the focus of the army and intelligence agencies was exclusively on the Kashmir region. So in the Kashmir region, there was no redeployment that was done, but from Jammu, where the security situation had improved, large number of troops of the Indian Army were redeployed towards eastern Ladakh to deal with this new threat that had emerged from China. So this obviously led to the thinning of Indian troops. The security mesh, the security grid that Indian forces had created in Jammu region, it became thinner, it became weaker, right? We had established a major security grid both in Jammu and Kashmir to fight infiltration and the export of terrorism from Pakistan. But as Indian troops were redeployed on a large scale towards China to deal with this new threat in Ladakh, it led to the thinning of the security grid, which created an opening for Pakistan. That was an opportunity Pakistan was waiting for. Plus, there are many advantages present in the local geography, in the local terrain, which Pakistan has been able to utilize, and the terrorists have used this to their advantage. Now, this is a true realization of the twin threat or the two-front threat that India has always anticipated. Indian strategic planners have always anticipated a combined threat, a simultaneous combined threat from China and Pakistan. Many analysts and experts, they even call this the 2.5 front threat or 2.5 front threat. Meaning, on one side, the Chinese forces could open a front with India, putting India under pressure. Pakistani forces could also open a simultaneous front with India, and Pakistan could use terrorist outfits. It could use asymmetric forces to open another front, thus representing a 2.5 front threat, which could simultaneously pose a challenge and weigh down the resources of the Indian security establishment. So this has always been a nightmare scenario for India, dealing simultaneously with China and Pakistan, not just with their regular forces, but also with the terrorists who are sponsored by Pakistani state agencies. So in many ways, we are seeing a realization of this nightmare worst case scenario, and that is the reason why the Indian security establishment has woken up to the threat, and we are proactively trying to contain the situation in Jammu region. Please understand that the Jammu region is also communally sensitive. If you look at the demography, right, there is a strong communal undertone that lies in the society of Jammu, a division between some of the local Hindus and Muslims, which could be potentially exploited by Pakistan to instigate social unrest, to create trouble by carrying out these terror attacks. Because such attacks could easily acquire a communal angle, and this could allow Pakistan to widen the communal divide and lead to social unrest as well between the communities. Ever since Article 370 was revoked, the Modi government has claimed a lot of success in bringing peace and stability to J&K. This has been a political narrative built by the government of India, not just on political grounds, but also as a strategic projection by the government of India, to show that J&K is an integral part of India, to show that the region is stable. The Modi government has taken several security measures, developmental measures along with these constitutional changes that were done. So this, in a way, the spike in terrorism in the Jammu region will upset this narrative, this political strategic narrative that the Modi government has been building. So that could also be a reason why Pakistan has been attempting to revive terrorism in the Jammu region. Is that clear? Now, if you look at the geography as well, there are a few geographical factors which are contributing to this new trend. If you look at India-Pakistan border, we share two types of borders. One is IB, international border, which is a settled border between India and Pakistan. This settled boundary stretches from Gujarat, over here from the Arabian Sea, till the Jammu region. This entire stretch of India-Pakistan border, which I am highlighting here, passing from Gujarat through Rajasthan, Punjab and Jammu region, this is the IB, which is a settled boundary. We have no such disputes over here, and it is guarded by the BSF, the Border Security Force. Of course, in Gujarat, we have one minor dispute at Sar Creek, at the Sar Creek estuary over here, where our IB meets the Arabian Sea. But other than that, this entire stretch of the border is a settled boundary. We have no disputes other than Sar Creek, and this settled boundary is guarded by the BSF, which is a border guarding force. According to the one border, one force policy, which was implemented after the Kargil war, the entire India-Pakistan border, that is the IB, is secured by the BSF. But after the IB, here in Jammu and Kashmir, we have a unsettled boundary, the disputed boundary that we have, which is LOC, the line of control, the de facto temporary border that we have, which essentially was the ceasefire line before. So when the 1947-48 war was brought to an end, whatever positions India-Pakistan held, that became the ceasefire line. Later, this ceasefire line was renamed as LOC, line of control, through the 1972 Shimla Agreement. So this has become the temporary de facto border in J&K. So the line of control is secured by the Indian Army. Given the heightened security threat and the possibility of infiltration of terrorists, because see, Pakistan provides direct support for infiltration. In fact, Pakistan has many times violated the ceasefire as well, deliberately. It has opened fire against Indian positions along the LOC to distract the Indian troops, especially during night time. Pakistan uses the night cover and opens firing and even shelling against the Indian positions to distract them, so that the terrorists can use this window and infiltrate into India. Plus, Pakistan has helped the terror groups to dig underground tunnels below the LOC and below the IB as well. So there are many vulnerabilities present here in the border areas where BSF and Indian Army are facing a very serious challenge. And if you look at the Pir Panjal range and the geography around it, it's a very complex terrain that is present. You have densely forested mountains. There are few rivers and water bodies cutting through the region. And more importantly, there are huge rocks, boulders and even caves that are present in the Pir Panjal forests, which can be easily used by the terrorists to hide. They can mount an attack and hide. They can use the caves and boulders to hide their ammunition as well. So there is a natural cover available for the terrorist elements operating in the Pir Panjal division in the Poonch Rajouri sector. So the local terrain and geography also plays a role, and all these factors are responsible along with the local support that might be present. Because for any such major revival of terrorism and militancy, it cannot be done without the element of local support being present. For example, if you remember the recent attack against pilgrims in the Poonch Rajouri sector, the Indian security agencies, they've already arrested a local who was involved in backing the terror outfits which carried out the attack. He had provided logistical support. Usually, security forces classify these local elements who provide that support as overground workers. They themselves would not be involved in terrorist activities, but they would be harboring them, giving them some kind of logistical support, arranging vehicles for them, providing shelter to them, or carrying out reconnaissance on their behalf. So such overground support might be extended, and this in a way is critical in any counterinsurgency, counterterrorism effort. When you're in such a conflict zone, it's critical for security forces like the army to build the contacts with local elements, to have a trust-based relationship with the local villagers, because they will be the eyes and ears of the government and the security forces. You need to build a strong local intelligence network. If local villagers are on your side, right, if they are motivated enough, if they are connected to the security forces, if they trust the security forces, they will provide any information about suspicious activity, which is absolutely crucial in such a conflict zone. You look at the Naxal corridor, you look at Northeast insurgency. That's exactly what security forces do. They work with the local villagers, build trust with them. They help them out, they provide assistance to them. And as far as possible, they avoid committing any kind of human right violations. You can't afford human right violations in such a conflict zone, because that will create a more distance between the forces and the local people. So building that trust-based relationship, that bond, is absolutely crucial. And that is one reason why we had managed to contain terrorism in the Jammu region previously. The army had worked closely with the local people, all right? And the local support and the intelligence network that was created was critical in bringing down the movement in early 2000. In early 2000, if Jammu region was largely freed from the threat of terrorism, it was because of the local support that existed in favor of the Indian army. But now, all those locals have become old. They are 60, 70 years old. And also the links between the army and the local people, they have weakened over a period of time. The current youth population, they don't have that connect. And Indian forces also have been a little complacent. Plus, there have been recent incidents where the army has been accused of committing serious human right violations. For example, in last year's attack in Poonch Rajouri sector, following the attack where many army soldiers were killed, a local rogue army unit targeted the local villagers, and 3 to 4 local people were allegedly killed and tortured and killed in custody. This led to a huge outcry, and even the Indian army ordered investigations, and the accused rogue soldiers have been suspended. And even the Indian army chief, they publicly admitted that there is prima facie evidence to indicate that few rogue soldiers have indeed committed custodial torture and custodial killings. So such incidents and the lack of focus on local elements has indeed hurt the intelligence gathering at the ground level. So this needs to improve. This has to be stepped up. The army has to reconnect with the younger generation. The intelligence agencies have to work with the youth, build trust, which takes time, right? And establish that local network, a direct communication network with the local people, and ensure that there are no elements supporting the terrorists on the other side. So this plays a critical role in any counterinsurgency, counterterrorism effort. And finally, the VDG, the Village Defense Committees or Village Defense Guards. This was an initiative that was started in 1990s, where security forces would provide weapons to local people in order to protect the local villages from the terrorists, because the terrorists were often targeting the minority communities and the people of the local villages. So to provide self-defense to them, they were provided basic training. Self-defense training was provided by security forces, and thousands of weapons were distributed. They were even given the ranks of special police officers. They would be given a stipend as well. They would function under the local SP, the district SP. So this was a self-defense mechanism, and it was a strategy of arming the local villagers to defend themselves against terrorist attacks, and does help the armed forces and security forces. This strategy helped India to weaken the terror network in the Jammu region. But however, it raised a lot of concerns. There were many allegations that those armed with these weapons had misused the powers given to them, and large-scale human right violations were reported. Several cases of abduction, illegal encounters and killings, and even rapes were reported. And following this controversy, the program was suspended by the government of India, by the Ministry of Home Affairs. In 2003, the Indian Army carried out a major operation, Operation Sarp Vinash, which almost wiped out the local support and the infiltration routes. And most of the terrorists were killed, which essentially brought the terrorism here to an end. Is that clear? But now, since the revival of the threat, the Home Ministry has restarted the Village Defense Guard initiative. Since 2022, and especially since last year, the Home Ministry has revived the Village Defense Guard initiative, and it has started redistributing the weapons, and CRPF and BSF are providing training to the local villagers so that they can defend themselves. They are also provided a rank, a designation, and a stipend as well to keep them motivated to fight on their own if required until the security forces arrive. So all these measures have been taken in order to ensure that we strengthen the security grid again in the Jammu sector. So this can come as a question, a mains question under GS paper 3. Are acts of terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir shifting towards Poonch, Rajouri, Kathua sector after being quiet for 2 decades? What are the reasons for the new trend? I think it's a fairly simple question after we have discussed this topic. So based on what pointers I gave you, you can easily build a good answer to this question. Start with an introduction, talk about the general pattern of terrorism that we have seen in J&K, how both Kashmir and Jammu have been affected historically, and how the Jammu region had become relatively safer over the last 20 years. But again, we are witnessing a spike in the cases of militancy and terrorist incidents in the last 2 to 3 years. So you can set the context in the introduction and then in the body, explain the factors responsible, the reasons. List out the reasons one by one which can substantiate your argument. First, you can discuss how India had weakened terrorism in the Jammu region through improved relations with local people, improved security grid in the Jammu region. All these factors had contributed to the decline of terrorism in Jammu. Mention Operation Sarp Vinash of 2003, which played a very important role in weakening terrorism. But later, there are several reasons, including the thinning of Indian troops as India has redeployed them towards Ladakh to deal with the threat from China, plus the ground situation created after the revocation of Article 370 and the special status, where Pakistan and the terrorist groups are waiting to strike back to create trouble in J&K, to change the narrative that has been built by the Modi government. So it's not a coincidence that on the day of the swearing in ceremony itself of the new government, there were planned attacks in the same region. And since then, we have witnessed 5 to 6 major terrorist incidents. So mention all this, discuss the geographical factors as well, the element of local support and how India is trying to counter this. Discuss the countermeasures and finally bring your answer to an end. Bring your answer to a good conclusion. Mention that fight against terrorism can never weaken. You can't be complacent. You always need to be prepared until the threat is entirely put down. So India needs to follow up on these measures. We need to strengthen the security grid, rebuild the intelligence network at the ground level, and also ensure that we win the favor, the minds, the hearts and minds of the local people. This is absolutely critical, right? So that would basically complete your answer. Now let's look at another interesting column, a very important column from the same page, related to economy and also related to international relations. The article is focused on critical minerals. The importance of critical minerals, India's dependency on imports for accessing critical minerals, the global supply chain for critical minerals, and why is it important for India to build at least a degree of self-sufficiency when it comes to critical mineral supply. That is what we need to learn. So first, let's look at the context. Let's understand why the topic is in news. Recently, the government of India has provided mining rights, or essentially it has granted the license to private mining firms to start the exploration and even the harvesting of mineral resources, critical mineral resources, as per the provisions of the newly amended Mines and Mineral Law. We have a legislation that regulates mining and mineral exploration activity in the country, right? The Mines and Minerals Act, Development and Regulation Act of 1957. This law was recently amended to take into account the strategic importance of critical minerals and securing the supply of critical minerals. There is a certain strategic geopolitical angle when it comes to securing the supply of critical minerals. So the government of India has awarded these mining rights. The licenses have been given for mining graphite, phosphorite, lithium to certain private companies, which makes it the first such allocation for the private sector under the amended Mines and Minerals Development and Regulation Act. So that is the context. So let's understand, what are critical minerals? Why are they so significant? How come a mining activity, how come it has a geopolitical angle, right? How come it has strategic significance? That's what we need to understand. See, critical minerals includes a list of minerals which are in limited supply. Meaning around the world, you have very limited resources. Very few countries possess these critical minerals in large quantities. and there is a limited supply of these critical minerals. That's why they become critical in the industry. So for example, you have lithium, copper, cobalt, nickel, graphite, and many others. India has identified 30 such critical minerals. I'll show you the entire list, by the way. It's very important for your prelims. So India has identified a list of 30 critical minerals that includes copper, lithium, nickel, cobalt, and many others. And day by day, year by year, their significance is increasing in the global economy. These minerals are not just of economic significance, they have a strategic geopolitical significance today. Clearly, geopolitical overtones can be seen with regard to mining and supply of critical minerals today, because countries are competing with each other to get a hold of these critical resources. See, these critical minerals are absolutely essential for the transition that we are making in the economy. As you all know, to deal with the impact of global warming and climate change, there is a target under Paris Agreement to keep the rise in global temperatures to under 1.5 degrees Celsius as compared to pre-industrial levels. And to achieve this goal, to achieve this target of Paris Agreement, we need to move away from fossil fuels. We have to switch from a fossil fuel driven economy to a cleaner economy, right? So when it comes to transportation and mobility especially, there is a major switch, a major transition happening around the world. Many countries have committed to net zero targets. They are looking to bring down their emissions and increase their carbon capture contribution so that they can achieve net zero status as soon as possible. Which means the global economy is headed towards a major transition, especially in transportation and certain industries, where we will shift away from fossil fuels and adopt cleaner forms of energy. So be it solar, wind, electric, they all require batteries to store that energy. So batteries are absolutely critical in the coming decades. More efficient batteries are required. And as of now, the most efficient battery that we know would be the batteries based on lithium, cobalt, nickel. So there is growing demand for these essential minerals. In fact, just in the last year, there has been a 30% increase in the demand for lithium. Can you imagine that? The global demand has jumped by 30%. This is according to the International Energy Agency. Similarly, for other critical minerals and rare earth elements, there has been a significant jump in the global demand. If you look at the Global Critical Minerals Outlook report, which is brought out by International Energy Agency, it highlights the growing demand for these critical minerals and rare earth elements. So please remember the name of the report and which organization publishes it. This could be a prelims question for you. So according to this report of the International Energy Agency, there is a rapid growth being witnessed. So in the coming years, especially by 2030, 2040, by 2050, in the next 20-30 years, we will see not just a doubling or tripling of the demand, we might see a 4-time increase, a quadrupling of the demand for these critical minerals. So countries which control the supply chain, countries which have these resources, countries which have already made a leap ahead when it comes to securing the supply of these minerals, they will have a unique advantage. Not just an economic advantage, but also a strategic geopolitical advantage. That is why there is a great power competition to secure the supply of critical minerals. US and Western countries on one side, China on the other side, and other powers like India and other middle powers, all are competing to secure the supply of critical minerals. Is that clear? But today, China is having dominating control over the supply chain of critical minerals. China has certain reserves, but it has managed to secure the mines in other countries where critical resources are present. In Africa, you have many countries like Central African Republic, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and others, which are blessed with certain critical strategic minerals. Then Australia, South America. In Latin America, you have many countries like Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, and others. Right? They have extensive resources of lithium, nickel, cobalt, and other critical strategic minerals. So China has not only harnessed its domestic resources, but it has gained control over the global supply chains. Many Chinese companies, they have invested in foreign mines, they control the production, they control the overall supply chain, thus dominating the global supply of critical strategic minerals. That is one more reason why this acquires a strategic geopolitical significance. be it India, be it Western countries, they wouldn't like to be dependent on China in this regard. So that is the reason why it's important to diversify India's supply chain as soon as possible and build some element of self-sufficiency. Because as of now, India has a serious dependency. We have a lot of import dependency. Just look at this table that I have shared. Go through this table in detail. It is very, very important for your exams. I have taken this data, this entire table in fact, from a report that was published by the India-Australia Critical Mineral Partnership. India-Australia have established a critical mineral partnership because we are strategic partners. And a few years ago, they brought out a report, this partnership brought out a report on India's consumption of critical minerals. Currently, where is it coming from? What are the sources? And what is the degree of India's import dependency? And how Australia can be a reliable supplier to India to reduce India's import dependency. Just look at the top critical minerals. From lithium to cobalt, nickel to strontium. We have 100% dependency. And which are the countries supplying? You can see that over here. Look at how China dominates the supply chain, even with regard to India. China is a key supplier along with some other countries. So please go through this list later, pay attention to it. There can be a specific prelims question based on India's critical import dependency for these critical minerals. Even for, let's say, zirconium, graphite and silicon and others, we still have some element of dependency on global supplies and other countries which are exporting them to India. So this is where India faces a challenge, a serious challenge. But fortunately, India has found some domestic reserves. It's not that we don't have any reserves of these critical minerals. We have stumbled upon some reserves. Recently, we got lucky in Jammu and Kashmir when the Geological Survey of India was exploring for limestone. They stumbled upon lithium reserves, and according to estimates, there could be around 5.9 million tons of lithium reserves present in J&K. Now, this is a very significant find. Of course, further exploration and studies are needed regarding its viability, but still it is a very significant find. So, even graphite and nickel and lithium reserves are being discovered in various parts of the country, and many other critical strategic minerals are being found. And even though they are present in limited quantities, harvesting them, right, and exploring that potential as efficiently as possible will be crucial for India's future. So this is where India needs to draw some lessons. See, for example, if you look at a mineral called ilmenite, through which titanium dioxide is produced, which has a critical industrial application, we actually have 11% of the global deposits. We have 11% of global ilmenite deposits, which means India can be a major producer of titanium dioxide. But unfortunately, due to the lack of proactiveness on the government's part, today, titanium dioxide is largely imported. We almost have 100% import dependency, even though we have 11% of the deposits in the country. So this approach is changing in the last few years. We are actively looking for the presence of these resources. We have discovered, we have stumbled upon certain reserves, and we are trying to amend the regulatory framework and ensure that private sector is actively involved in exploring and in mining these critical reserves in India. So recently the law was amended. Last year, the Mines and Minerals Act, Development and Regulation Act of 1957 was amended last year through an amendment act, and 30 critical minerals have been identified by the government. This is the list that I was talking about. So please make a note. Please be aware which are the 30 critical minerals. You can go through this list later. It includes lithium, nickel, cobalt, etc., and also few rare earth elements which have strategic value. They have not just a major application in civilian industry, but also they have a lot of military applications in the defense industry, in aerospace, in space industries, in manufacturing of weapons, right? They have plenty of dual usage and dual application. So India has taken a number of domestic and global initiatives to secure the supply of critical minerals. We have established a dedicated public sector unit called KABIL, Khanij Bidesh Limited, Khanij Bidesh India Limited. It has been set up through a collaboration between existing PSUs such as the NALCO, Hindustan Copper Limited, and Mineral Exploration Company Limited. These existing public sector units have established Kabil under Ministry of Coal and Mines. And the mandate of Kabil is to not just look for critical mineral resources within the country, but to explore opportunities abroad, to tie up with foreign mines and tie up with foreign governments to secure mineral security for the nation. Just like we secured energy security by securing oil and gas deals with West Asian countries, African countries, Russia, Venezuela, and others. Similarly, we have to actively look out for mineral supplies and ensure that we achieve import substitution in the coming years. This is the mandate of Kabil. Plus, the law has been amended and a new regulatory framework has been introduced. When it comes to auctioning and licensing within India, the regulatory framework has been simplified, and already the government has begun the auctioning and licensing process. So the initial set of auctions were done for the critical mineral blocks that were discovered, and after a delay, the first set of mining rights have been issued for private mining firms across the country. So this is a big step for India. And globally, we are working with partners like Australia and United States. We have established the Critical Mineral Investment Partnership with Australia because Australia has major reserves of critical and strategic minerals, and it can be a very reliable supplier to India compared to China. Plus, we have joined the Mineral Security Partnership, which is led by United States, and it includes many other Western countries which are closely aligned with India. The US launched this initiative, the MSP initiative, to reduce the Western dependency on China as far as the supply of critical strategic minerals are concerned. It's not just India, even Western powers had developed a critical dependency on the supply of critical strategic minerals. So India also has joined the MSP last year, which is a US-led initiative, and we are working separate agreements with the Lithium Triangle countries in South America. The Lithium Triangle refers to Chile, Argentina, and Bolivia, which have the world's largest known lithium reserve. We are working with these countries and we are trying to secure mining licenses in South America as well. So these are some steps that India has taken, and you should also know the domestic distribution of some of these resources that have been discovered in India. There can be a geography-based prelims question regarding the presence of some of these critical minerals across Indian states. So please go through this factual paragraph that I have added over here from the Hindu newspaper itself. Phosphorite has been discovered along with glauconite in Chhattisgarh, which is being auctioned. In Uttar Pradesh, phosphonite and rare earth elements have been discovered. In Karnataka, phosphate and nickel blocks are being auctioned to private mining companies. Potash and halite in Rajasthan, graphite in Jharkhand, as well as in Arunachal Pradesh, and along with graphite, even tungsten and vanadium in Arunachal Pradesh. In the northeast, Arunachal has some of the critical resources, and this is very crucial. It borders China. China claims Arunachal Pradesh as well. So there are implications for this. Then tungsten has been discovered in Madurai of Tamil Nadu. Cobalt and manganese blocks have been discovered in Shimoga district of Karnataka. Chromium nickel blocks have been discovered in Sindhudurg, Maharashtra. So the government is trying to harness these resources. We are looking to auction all these blocks through a simplified regulatory process through the amended law, the Mines and Mineral Development and Regulation Law. But however, there are some challenges when it comes to domestic exploration and mining of these resources. One is the lack of data. We haven't conducted enough studies, especially Geological Survey of India and even the private mining firms. They lack the required technical data to assess whether the reserves are viable. Can they be commercially exploited? So that is something which is a roadblock. That's why many private companies are not showing interest to bid for the auctions. And also, the lithium reserves that have been discovered in J&K, which has been said to be one of the world's largest known reserves. The problem is this lies in a clay deposit. And globally, if you look at mineral exploration and harvesting, extraction from clay deposits is largely untested. So there's no surety for a private investor whether this would be commercially viable. Can they extract sufficient minerals which can be profitable for that particular venture? So Lithium present in clay deposits in J&K can pose a technical challenge as well. It could raise questions about the commercial viability of such projects. So the lack of data and also the kind of reserves present in the country, it could be pushing the private investors away, and that is one reason why there is a lack of interest by some of the private mining firms in India. So there are some challenges that we need to address and overcome, but otherwise India has taken several steps to secure the supply of critical strategic minerals. So please take up a practice question based on this. Exploration, mining and supply of critical minerals has increasingly acquired geopolitical overtones. Examine. So for such a question, right, in the introduction, you either agree or disagree with the statement which has been given. So obviously, based on your understanding, you can agree with the given statement. You can say that, yes, as far as exploration, mining and supply of critical minerals is concerned, there is a clear geopolitical overtone which is being witnessed. That's because these critical minerals have strategic value. They are going to be crucial for the future economy, which will be less dependent on fossil fuels and more dependent on clean forms of energy and battery stored energy. Plus, they have not just civilian but military applications as well, and thus they become minerals of strategic value. Plus, the reserves in the world, the deposits are very limited. Very few countries hold them. Very few countries control the supply chain, which makes it a competitive business, and thus big powers and middle powers enter this great game, this competition. So set this context in the introduction that yes, there is a clear geopolitical overtone being seen as far as the race for critical strategic minerals are concerned. Then in the body, talk about the significance and India's dependency on imports. You can provide further explanation why critical minerals are crucial for transitioning to electric vehicles and battery-based energy supply, and explain how India has limited reserves and how we are dependent on imports, how China controls most of the supply chains, how there is a competition between China and Western powers, where US and Australia are trying to diversify the supply chains. Then you can explain the initiatives taken by India. Talk about our partnership with US and Australia and other countries. Discuss the negotiations we are carrying out with lithium triangle countries, the establishment of Kabul, the recent amendment which has been done to the Mine and Mineral Act, through which we have recognized 30 critical minerals. We are trying to simplify the auctioning of the mines in the country. Maybe present a picture about the distribution of reserves in India. What kind of resources are found in India? You can present a brief picture in the body, and finally you can present a way forward. You can state that securing the supply of these critical minerals is non-negotiable, right? Especially for a large economy like India, which is all set to become one of the largest, the third largest in the coming decades. It's non-negotiable for us. So given that China and US are already trying to dominate these supply chains, it's very essential for India to compete and secure these supplies and achieve at least a degree of self-sufficiency, right? So that can be a good conclusion for your answer. Now coming to the last mains article on page number 1, we have this article related to the plight of Indian workers in Italy. It's a very serious development that has occurred in Italy. Italy witnessed large-scale protests by migrant workers and worker unions because there has been a case of slavery and exploitation of migrant workers. Slavery and exploitation of workers who have reached Italy on work permits, and even some workers who enter the country illegally. There are several illegal migrant workers as well in Italy. And this particular incident that has happened in Italy concerns India directly. See, if you look at India and Italy, we do have good relations, right? India has a decent diaspora in the country. We have at least 1.7 to 2 lakh Indians residing and working in Italy. And especially the Sikh community has a stronger presence in Italy. Is that clear? And many of these Indians, right, who are in Italy, many of them are low-skilled laborers. meaning they have very little education, very few skills or no skills. And some of them would land here through these work permits which are granted by Italy, and many of them land here through the illegal migrant route, through the donkey routes. Is that clear? Now, Italy faces a unique challenge. It's facing a problem in its economy, in its society. It has an aging population. See, that is why such news articles are important. It helps you understand various trends and patterns based on which questions can be asked. If you don't believe me, look at this question that UPSC asked this year. This question is from 2024 prelims. This question gave a set of countries, 5 countries were listed, asking which of them are frequently mentioned in the media for their low birth rates, aging population or declining population. That was the given question. So if you are reading newspapers, if you are paying attention to such articles, you would know which countries are facing this problem amongst the given options. Usually, Western countries in general, European countries especially, and also few East Asian countries are facing the problem of falling birth rates, aging, declining population. Italy, Japan, South Korea would be the answer, 1, 2 and 4. Is that clear? Now, this topic is related to that. The reason why Italy imports workers from abroad and grants permit for these workers who are later exploited is because the country is facing a shortage of labor. It has an aging population, a declining population. Just one trip around Europe will tell you the situation. In many European countries, you only see old people wherever you go. These societies are facing a very serious challenge in the coming years. South Korea, Japan are already going through that. Someday China will also go through that. Someday India might also go through that. But as of now, Italy is facing this problem of aging population. That's also a reason why Italy was one of the countries that was seriously hit during the COVID-19 pandemic. Because COVID-19 would have a disproportionate impact on the elderly, on senior citizens. And that's one reason why Italy suffered immensely during the first wave. Right? So this is common sense that you develop when you read more such articles and you start understanding these trends and patterns. So Italy is facing a labor shortage due to its aging population. It doesn't have enough people to do the hard work, the manual labor that is needed. Whatever is available is not cheap. That is another problem. So that is why countries like Italy and many others, they have started these work permit systems. They welcome low-skilled labor. They need low-skilled laborers. You might think you only need a high degree, high education, high skills to work abroad. No. Today there are countries facing a labor shortage. They need cheap labor to carry out certain manual tasks, to carry out certain laborious tasks. So they are attracting low-skilled laborers on a temporary basis. They give these work permits for few months or few years. For Italy, problem is mainly in agriculture sector. I hope you know that most agricultural crops are seasonal, right? For example, during sowing season, during harvest season, Italy faces a significant shortage of cheap farm labor. So what Italy does is that it gives out these work permits only during those months. Only during the sowing season and harvest season for 2 to 3 months, work permits are given, and there are many middle agents that are involved in bringing cheap labor, migrant laborers from other countries to Italy so that these farms can be run by the farm owners, by the landlords. And India is one of the biggest contributor of cheap farm labor to Italy, especially from Punjab. All right. So many such Indians, thousands of them, have been transported to Italy. Many of them reach illegally as well. Through the donkey route, with the help of human traffickers, they somehow reach some of these countries and they try to stay there illegally. Right. So this has indeed posed a challenge for India, and recently cases have emerged and there have been some disturbing incidents that point towards slavery and exploitation of migrant labor. Let me tell you what happened. There was this incident a few days ago where an Indian farm worker lost his entire arm. His arm got severed after it got caught in a machine, in a farm machine. Nylon wrapping machines are used to bring mechanization with regard to agricultural packaging. And one of the Indian farm workers who was working for an Italian farmer, right? His arm unfortunately got stuck in the machine and his arm got cut off. It got completely severed. So he is suffering from severe blood loss, and his wife was urging the landlord to call the authorities, to call emergency services so that he can be taken to the hospital. If this landlord had acted on time, possibly his life could have been saved. His arm had been cut off, but at least his life would have been saved. But this Italian farmer, the landlord who had employed him, he showed complete complacency. He ignored whatever had happened, and by the time he could get any medical assistance, he had already lost his life. So this death of an Indian worker triggered a wave of protests in Italy. Several other migrant workers and worker unions have protested, and Italian police and authorities began an investigation, and they have uncovered a racket. They have uncovered the involvement of illegal middlemen and human traffickers who are bringing migrant workers, and they have uncovered a system where the workers are abused by the employers. They are paid very minimal salaries. And what is even more unfortunate is that many of the middlemen involved are Indians themselves. They are in collusion with other traffickers and some of the employers as well, paying them peanuts, paying them hardly 4 euros per day, when the minimum wage is supposed to be much higher in Europe, in the European market. They are made to work for 10 to 12 hours, sometimes 14 to 16 hours. And what is even worse is that the payment is not made to them. They hold the payments with them until the last minute. There are cases where passports are also confiscated. We have seen such incidents happening in the Gulf, in West Asia. Something similar is happening in Italy as well with Indian migrant workers. So these are workers who have very little education. They basically don't even speak English or the foreign language, right? They don't understand the rules and regulations. For the sake of a better life or some better earning, they would have opted for this route, and they end up getting exploited. So Italian authorities have pressed charges of slavery and human exploitation against these middlemen, which includes few Indian middlemen as well, and Italian employers. And this has become a serious case in Italy. Even European Union has paid attention to the issue, and India is taking this up in a very big manner with Italy. So this affects the well-being of the Indian community abroad, and hence it becomes an important topic for our mains exam. Now let's head towards the prelim section. Let's take a quick look at the smaller articles in the newspaper today. We have an article related to environment and ecology that helps us understand how we can manage man-animal conflict by using advanced technology along with traditional methods. See, in Kerala, there is a serious concern with regard to increasing incidents of man-animal conflict, especially with regard to wild elephants. I am sure you would have seen on social media a few popular elephants which have gained popularity on social media because they frequently venture into human habitations. Because there is loss of habitat happening in the forest areas, in the core forest, the quality of the forest has degraded. There isn't enough food available for the animals. Enough grass and leaves and fodder is not available deep inside the forest, pushing some of the wild animals to enter human habitations. Right? They roam around the outskirts of the forest areas, entering villages, sometimes cities. They cross highways. They even cross railway tracks. And unfortunately, many times the animals get killed. They could get hit by a truck or a train. Or when they devastate the crops or local shops, local people might hold anger against the animals and they might target them. They might use very aggressive methods, from poisoning to opening fire to electric fencing, which can kill the wild animals. So this is a very delicate situation. The local people also suffer losses. There could be loss of life, loss of property, loss of crops, and it affects the animals, it affects our wildlife, it affects our ecosystems and biodiversity. So it's a pressing challenge to be addressed with increasing population, with increasing deforestation, urbanization, industrialization. Man-animal conflict has become a pressing challenge, especially in densely populated countries like India. So the Kerala government and the Forest Department, they have come out with a new master plan to sustainably deal with rising incidents of man-animal conflict, and I'll explain this. The Kerala Forest Department has proposed this master plan which will leverage modern technology to keep a check on man-animal incidents. They are deploying AI-based tools to provide advanced warning and predictions at previously known locations. They are deploying drones with thermal cameras which can track the movement of wild animals. They are also deploying camera traps to heighten the surveillance, to increase the surveillance of the movement of wild animals, especially near human habitations. So such ultra-modern technology has been proposed to be deployed. Drones can play a critical role, especially if they're equipped with thermal cameras. Even they can operate during night times. They will have night vision as well. And it could be very helpful for the authorities to avert a crisis by tracking the movement of the wild animals. Then AI-based prediction as well. Using AI tools for developing an alert system could be immensely beneficial. Then for railway tracks, advanced sensors have been developed which are being deployed in the northeast of India as well. Even there, we witnessed a lot of elephant accidents where elephants crossing a railway track, they are hit by the moving trains. So based on the movement of elephants, the trains can be notified, the train drivers and the command stations can be notified, and automatically the trains can be brought to a halt. So such technologies are being deployed to prevent the rising incidents of human-wildlife conflict. Apart from that, traditional methods can also play a big role, and even this is prioritized under the master plan. It's not just modern technology, even local methods, traditional methods, which is known to local villages, which is known to the local tribes, can be of immense value. For example, there is something called biofencing. It's a very important prelims topic. See, fencing is a very efficient method, right? You can install physical fences, barbed wires, low voltage electric fences, which can deter the animals. Apart from physical fencing, you can also use biofencing, natural biological fencing. For example, creating a bee line. Elephants are very scared of bees. Many wild animals are. They don't venture into areas where bee hives are present. This is a local method which is widely used in South Asia, Southeast Asia and Africa as well. Many African tribes in Indonesia, Thailand, in India as well. Farmers and local communities, they know about this. So they create a bee hive around the farm areas or habitat areas so that elephants don't venture into those areas. Or also cultivating chilies. Elephants are very averse to chilies. They love everything sweet, right? They go for sugarcane, fruits, rice and others. But when chili plants are, if they are planted as a fence around crops and around habitations, it's known that elephants don't venture into that territory. This is part of traditional knowledge of local tribal communities. In Kerala, you have local tribes which follow this practice. They create a chili barrier by growing chili plants around the farms and villages, and it actually ensures that elephants don't venture into that area. So biofencing can be very efficient, a more sustainable traditional method of dealing with man-animal conflict. So combination of the two is required. You need a fusion, a merger of the modern and the ancient to bring about sustainable management of man-animal conflict incidents. So that is what the Kerala Forest Department is implementing. Next, on page number 9, we have an important update on India-Bangladesh connectivity plans. See, India-Bangladesh are very important neighbors of the region of South Asia, Bay of Bengal region, and connectivity is a priority for both the countries. We are establishing land-based connectivity by connecting our roads, inland ports, etc. We are establishing rail-based connectivity, and we are also looking at sea-based port connectivity. So India, Bangladesh are pursuing all forms of connectivity because Bangladesh is a route through which India can access the northeast. We can build alternate routes to access the northeast of India, because currently Siliguri corridor is the only available opportunity to reach the northeast, and Siliguri corridor is a narrow choke point. It's the chicken's neck of India. So India is trying to build alternate routes to access the northeast of India, and also northeast region is landlocked. By connecting with Bangladesh, we can provide sea access to the northeast, which can improve the economy, the exports of northeast India. So India, Bangladesh have several connectivity initiatives, and one of them is port connectivity. According to the article, a Bangladeshi team of officials are in India to explore the connectivity opportunities between Kolkata port and other ports on the east coast of India with Bangladeshi ports. Please look at the map. It's important to understand this topic. Bangladesh has some strategic ports like the Mongla port over here, which is closer to West Bengal. The Chittagong port, also called Chattogram port, where China has invested heavily, even India has certain investments. So these ports of Bangladesh are being connected with the Kolkata and the Haldia port in West Bengal. The Shyam Prasad Mukherjee port in Kolkata and the Haldia port nearby. These are major ports of India on the east coast of India. Then we also have Paradip in Odisha and also Vishakhapatnam in Andhra Pradesh, right? So these major ports of India on the east coast, if they are interlinked with Bangladeshi ports and if they are further connected with Myanmar and Southeast Asia, there is tremendous regional opportunities that are available, right? So we already have certain agreements to connect the Mongla port and Chittagong port with the east coast ports of India like the Kolkata and Haldia port. This can open many opportunities for India as well. From these ports, we can use the inland navigation routes that are present, because the Ganga, the Brahmaputra and even the Barak river from the northeast, they all flow into Bangladesh, right? We have almost, I think, 53, 54 transboundary rivers. Many of them merge to form the Meghna river system, which drains into Bay of Bengal. So using the inland navigation route over these rivers, we can navigate between India and Bangladesh. We already have national waterway networks on Ganga, Brahmaputra and Barak. We can interconnect them with the inland navigation routes of Bangladesh, connect them with the ports, thus establishing alternate routes to northeast India, thus connecting northeastern states to Bay of Bengal and allowing Bangladesh to use Indian ports for transshipment to other countries. So let's say Bangladesh has certain exports to China or Myanmar. They can be brought to Kolkata Haldia port, which has better facilities and infrastructure, and from here they can be exported to other third countries. So it could be connected with the Sitwe port in Myanmar, which has been built by India, or the Yangon port in Myanmar, or other major ports in Southeast Asia and other countries, which can be a boost for Bangladeshi exports and imports. So that is what India, Bangladesh are jointly exploring. Coming to the next article on page number 9, it's again related to internal security. Home Minister Amit Shah has spoken about the initiatives being undertaken by the Ministry of Home Affairs under the Vibrant Villages program, which is being executed along the borders with China. See, I was just explaining the importance of the local villages in security management and border management. Especially in border villages, it's very important to ensure that these villages are populated. Because generally, if border villages are neglected, if they don't have adequate development, if they don't have basic necessities, and if there is no employment opportunities, what will happen? The border people, they will migrate. You will witness the migration of people from border villages towards cities and other places where they can find a better life, a better employment opportunity. So if your villages are abandoned, if the population is less, and if it's a disputed border that exists, it might strengthen the claims of the other hostile neighbor, right? Plus, we have countries like China, which are creating these so-called model villages along the disputed boundary. China has been building these so-called model villages with advanced infrastructure, and it has been repopulating them. It's been bringing population from other parts and repopulating these border villages to enhance its claims against India. So we can't have a situation where our border villages are depopulated due to migration. And also, you need the local people to be in our favor, right? You need to ensure they are patriotic, they can pass information for the armed forces, intelligence agencies, and the border guarding forces. They will act as the eyes and ears of the government. They can keep track of any suspicious movement, enemy movement, or any infiltration which is happening. Report them to the authorities, which can help in forming a security grid at the border areas. Because you can't expect security forces to be present at every inch. It's the local people who will become the eyes and ears of the government and the security agencies. So it's very essential to ensure the border villages are developed. So that is why we have a program called Border Area Development Program. This is implemented in all the border villages across all international borders that we have, from Pakistan to China, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh and Myanmar. In all the border villages, Border Area Development Program is implemented by the Home Ministry. Recently, we have launched one more program exclusively for the villages facing the Chinese border called Vibrant Villages Program. It was announced in 2022, launched last year in 2023, around 2,000 plus villages in Ladakh, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Sikkim and Arunachal Pradesh. They will receive exclusive funds and special initiatives will be taken up to achieve development in these border villages. The Home Minister has said that the plan has been rolled out. We are already implementing this and the focus is on establishing 4G internet connectivity. This can transform the economy, improve communication, help in disaster management as well. And focus is on creating tourist circuits to boost tourism, which can create revenue opportunities, employment opportunities for the local people. All weather roads are being built to enhance access and connectivity, which can serve a military strategic purpose as well. Plus, there is focus on job creation. There is focus on providing basic supplies like water, electricity, improving education and healthcare. So these are the priority areas of Vibrant Villages program, and all these initiatives are already being implemented in some of the border villages facing the Chinese border. Is that clear? So along the Chinese border, there are two separate border development initiatives taking place. One is Vibrant Villages program. The other is Border Area Development program. Border Area Development program is for all the border villages across all international borders. But Vibrant Villages program is specific to those villages facing the Chinese border. Coming to the last article for today, the Chandipura virus, which has been reported in Gujarat, has led to the death of 4 children. This is a very rare disease. It's caused by a pathogen, which is a member of Vesculovirus genus from the family Rhabdoviridae. It causes a very rare condition, a very rare disease known as the Chandipura viral disease, reported in parts of Gujarat and Rajasthan. Children in particular are vulnerable and it is spread through vectors. There are a few vectors which transmit this virus like mosquitoes, sand flies and ticks. So the bite of a mosquito or a tick or a sand fly which is carrying this virus can lead to the transmission and it can cause fever-like symptoms. Flu-like symptoms are reported. But this can quickly escalate if it is not correctly diagnosed and treated. It can quickly escalate, leading to acute encephalitis, which causes inflammation of the brain of the child, and it can damage the neurological system and the tissues as well, the brain tissue, leading to the death of the child. So the recent outbreak reported in Gujarat has been of concern, and the concerned authorities are trying to deal with the situation. So please know about the Chandipura virus, which is locally reported in Gujarat and Rajasthan. So this brings my discussion to an end. Now, before I conclude, please remember that we provide a quiz on these topics on our Telegram channel. Right after the session ends, we'll conduct a quiz. This is the best way for you to revise these topics and even prepare for 2025 prelims. So you will have 5 MCQs which are posted on our Telegram channel and you can attempt these questions. So do join the Telegram channel by scanning the QR code or just click on the link provided in the video description. That is it for today. I hope you guys liked the session. If you did, please let me know in the comments, share the video with other aspirants and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. That is it. I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching. NCERT books are unavoidable to crack the IAS exam. Not only is the content of these books authentic, but these books also help a civil services aspirant to build conceptual clarity. And most importantly, lots of questions in the civil services examination are directly asked from NCERT books. But the aspirants often find it difficult to cover these books, or worse, they even end up ignoring these books. We at Unacademy IAS English are going to make the reading and understanding of the NCERT books easier. We present NCERT Fundamentals course, a free initiative of Unacademy IAS English. What are the highlights of this program? Comprehensive coverage of the most relevant NCERT books for the civil services exam. Prelims and mains practice questions in each session to test your understanding of the fundamental concepts. This course begins from 12th of July every day at 6 p.m. right here on our YouTube channel. Subscribe to the channel now.